Hi there, Julie Reilly here. Welcome to my kitchen, and tonight we're going to be making focaccia art. I'd like to thank the Franklin Square Library for sponsoring this video. And if you're from Franklin Square, you have received a kit with all the ingredients to make this wonderful bread. And it's going to be so pretty too. So let me just tell you about a few things that you'll need. First, preheat your oven to 425 degrees. You'll need a medium to large mixing bowl, a paring knife, wooden spoon, a measuring cup, and maybe a 2-cup measuring cup would be good, and a cutting board. All right. And I think that is about it. Everything else is included in the kit. I use a chef knife instead of a paring knife. So here we go. We're going to open up our package, and I will read off what is in here. Fabulous. So we have 2 cups of flour, a tablespoon of yeast, and in your flour, there is, the salt is already in it. We have seasoning. It is garlic granules with some dried basil, Romano cheese, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And we have a couple of teaspoons of sugar. And this is onion. It's not granules. It's like topping for like bagels, like an onion topping. Very important. Makes it very flavorful. And then your fresh vegetables that I gave you. So first I'm going to open up the, okay, should I have a scissor on hand maybe? Because that didn't open. I hope your herbs lasted. So I wrapped up some rosemary. And if you just unfold it, let's put this to the side here. And we have some nice basil. Some Italian parsley. You see how I wrapped that in a wet paper towel? That's how my grandmother used to store everything. Her herbs and like salad and lettuce. This is fresh thyme. And this is rosemary. Okay, so we're gonna put that to the side. Everything to the side. Then, there's no specific amounts on that, and I gave you way more than enough to make a focaccia. Then we have this little bag of vegetables. I gave you some broccoli. If you want, you could steam the broccoli in the microwave with a little bit of water for a couple of minutes. I gave you some peppers, mini bell peppers. They're so sweet. These are not hot peppers. They're so great. And I gave you some grape tomatoes. Like all the different colors. So there's red and orange and yellow. So the whole idea is we're going to make artwork on top of our pizza dough. Then I gave you a few olives. If you just take this little end and you pull it, it opens up. I'm not going to take those out because it's a little wet. And we have some green onions, or what we call scallions. And again, I gave you 2, but there's no specific amount. Okay. And a red onion that is cut in half. Can you already see? See how this onion? We're going to slice it this way and keep this. That's going to be one of the flowers. Fantastic. And finally, some mushrooms. Now the mushrooms, remind me later, we don't use all the oil. We're going to soak these in oil before we put them onto the pizza so they don't get dried out. Fantastic. We're going to get started now. If you'd like to sign up for my email list, you just text the word cooking, COOKING, to the number 22828. That will get you on my email list. I don't do too many, but upcoming things that are happening. I'm very excited to be here with the Franklin Square Library. It's my first program with them, and I hope when we get back into person, I'll be able to come and visit you there. I actually live very close. I'm just in New Hyde Park. So we're going to measure out 3/4 of a cup of warm water, not hot and not cold. So it is pretty important to be pretty exact with this, because I gave you 2 cups of flour. So if you put too much in, your dough is going to be too wet, and if you put too little, the dough is going to be too dry. When you're measuring, children, you pour it in and you get down at eye level. That's what they teach you in science, because it's concave like this, and you always take the bottom line. And yes, 3/4 of a cup of warm water. The water should be between 100 and 110 degrees. One way is just to put your finger in and see, feels just room temperature, like a little warmer than room temperature. Like mommies would test the baby's bath with their elbow, just to make sure that it's not too hot for the baby. Same kind of degrees for this. So I have a thermometer, and it is, it's a little bit under 100 degrees, but I think that is okay. So why is the temperature so important? Because we're going to add our yeast, and this tiny little package is the sugar. We're going to add yeast and the sugar to the warm water. And does anybody know what yeast is? I could hear you all saying, oh, it's what makes the bread rise. Yes, it does make the bread rise. But what is it? Yeast is fungi, and it is alive. And we're going to activate the yeast with our little science project here to show you that it's going to start to grow. So I put the water, sugar, and now the yeast. So nowadays the yeasts are they're fast acting, quick rise, so you really don't have to do this part of it. You could just go all in with the flour, but I love to show children this part of it, so that they realize. So once you put it really starts bubbling up right away. Not like bubble, but you could see it. It's starting to get aerated right away. And it's going to start to grow. So we're going to put that to the side just for a little bit. And we are going to move on to the next part, which is the flour. So we'll just, again, you pull this little, and it opens up. Now we are going to dump it all in. And then with the little package that your yeast came in, we're going to scoop out that much. Okay, like that, for dusting the pan, dusting the board. Now, the reason why I tell you that is that depending on what kind of day it is, if it's a rainy day, there's a lot of moisture in the air, humidity, sometimes you need a little bit less water. So it's easier to add flour than it is to add more water. So we're going to take this bowl, and I'm going to make like a little well, like a hole in the center. you all are cooking along with me. So make that well. Now we're doing this old school. You could do this all in a KitchenAid, but this is the fun of it, especially if it's your first time. So my grandmother taught me all this when I was about 5 years old. Every time I make pizza dough, I think about her. I'm just gonna, you could see that the yeast was growing. It gets all like bubbly a little bit. So we're gonna pour it into the bowl. And then we're gonna take our wooden spoon. I'm not gonna just go all the way around the outside. I'm gonna pull it in from the middle. I'm gonna stir the middle. And then keep incorporating in some of the flour. That's why we made the well. So that the middle, see how I'm just stirring in the middle, and then I keep pulling in the flour. Now, one of the reasons why I do this too, if I didn't measure the water correctly, then I could stop incorporating the flour if it gets very, very dry. So I gave you 2 cups of flour, had a little bit of whole wheat flour in there too. Not much. Oh my goodness, and I forgot, excuse me, pardon me. We also have to put in a tablespoon of olive oil. All right. That's why it was a little dry. So as you continue to mix it, it starts to form a ball. All right. And we're gonna keep going round and round until, see how my bowl is nice and clean now? There's nothing stuck on the sides. If it's too wet, you will add some flour to it. So now it's like a ball like this. So I'm just gonna scrape this off the spoon. I'm only using one hand for this, kids. I am going to sprinkle my board with a little bit of flour, and we're going to turn the dough out onto the cutting board, like so. And if there's anything in the bowl, just rub it off. It's all good. I'm gonna put this to the side here. Excellent. So now we're going to knead the dough, and I'm going to stop everyone right now before you put your fingers into it. First, put a little flour on one of your hands, like that. And we're going to knead the dough. Kneading the dough, you don't put your fingers into the dough. You're going to use the palm of your hands is here, and this is the heel of your palm. My oven is heated up. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold it over, and we're going to press down just with this part of your hand. And you could have this other hand on top to press down. You should be standing up to do this. Chefs don't cook sitting down. Not unless they are in a wheelchair, then they would be sitting down. But no, this is, you stand up and you put your weight into it, and I keep pressing down and flipping it over. I'm using one hand. You want to always keep one hand clean. But this dough mixed in really nicely. So I'm rolling the dough forward, back and forth, and folding it over, kind of keeping it in a ball. I'm only using my fingers to pull it back together. Now I could tell my dough is more than a little tacky. I got some dough stuck to my fingers. That means I need a little more flour. Sprinkle just a very little bit, and turn it over, and sprinkle just a very little bit, just to coat it. Don't pour the whole thing on. Oops. So we have to knead this dough for 5 minutes. So let's do that. I don't have my timer. Okay. We're adding flour as needed. It should be a little wet. If you didn't have enough water, just keep kneading it. It'll get a little moist. Or you might want to maybe smear a little bit of olive oil on the surface and then incorporate that in. But it should be a little tacky. Tacky is, it's wet, but it's not sticking, like you could feel it. Nice and tacky. This is gonna be a nice dough. All right. So as I said, my grandmother was the one who taught me how to make pizza dough. My last name is Reilly, but my maiden name is Marcotullio, so I am 100% Italian. All my grandparents, except for one, was born in Italy. So my grandmother would teach me all these wonderful things. As a matter of fact, my grandmother is who I am and what I do. Come home from school, and she'd be making things. She taught me how to do everything. She was not only a great chef, she was a good teacher too. So every time I make pizza, I think about it, I reminisce. I've been teaching cooking to children for 25 years. It started as a hobby on Saturday mornings, right in East Williston with their creative arts workshop. And that was like 1998, and then 2007, I made a business out of it. I started going to libraries and youth centers. I do parties in people's houses. I do Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. I do Girls' Night Out. Now, I don't just teach children anymore. I expanded to adults. We've done Thrill of the Grill. So many things, sweet and savory items. So savory is this, focaccia. It's something that's seasoned, it's not dessert. And my mission statement always was to empower children through food preparation, reinforcing math, art, science, and cultural awareness, bringing families to the table, showing them the ease of preparing a home-cooked meal. It can be fast, doesn't have to be fast food processed. And finally, the power of sitting down to a home-cooked meal reaches far beyond the food that's on the table. Eat together, cook together, make new traditions. Don't be afraid to let your children into the kitchen, parents. Teach them when they're young, and they will be a big help. Now, as I'm doing this, you can feel, it's just been 5 minutes, the dough actually feels different. It gives a little, bounces back a little, it's smooth. So I'm just making like a disc out of it, and I'm going to put it into my bowl. I'll put a little flour in the bottom of my bowl. Now we're going to be using it right away, and it's only going to have one rise. So the most important thing now, children, is not to touch the dough. We have to let it rest. And when it rests, like when we rest, we grow. We relax and we grow. So our dough is going to relax and it's going to grow. And we're going to move on and get our vegetables ready. All right, so I'm going to wipe down my cutting board. It's always good to have a little wet towel, clean wet towel by your side. I'm going to get rid of this. All right, so let's see what we have. Well, let's start with the broccoli. That's easy. Okay. So the broccoli, we're going to break it down into little flowerets. And you know what? Start thinking about, you all got the sheets on what the focaccias look like. I did a lot of flowers. There's one there, a little child did a panther. Just think, you could do any design that you like. So this is where you're going to use your imagination. So I'm going to cut my broccoli to florets. Maybe this might even be a little tree hanging out. Right? We like to call broccoli trees, right? Or if you cut off the stem completely, they could be little bushes. So here's where the art comes in. We did a little bit of science there. Now for the onion, I would highly recommend you get an adult to help you with this. Let me show you. The onion is like this. And I give you half an onion. So we're going to hold it. When you use a knife, you don't hold a knife, grip it like this. You have to hold it very loosely. Because when you grip it, that means you're putting force. And if you slip, you could hurt yourself. You always keep your eye on the blade and your eyes on your fingers and your product. You curve your hand, and this just holds the item in place. You let the knife do the work. I always say a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp knife, because a dull knife, again, you have to put a lot of pressure. So I'm going to let the knife do the work, and I'm going to slice. I'm going to try to get 3 slices out of this. 2 kind of thin, and 3. So that you see, and don't worry if it falls apart a little bit, that this is going to become the flour. All right. 2, 3. And I'm going to leave this the way it is. Maybe I'll think of something to use later on. For the scallions, I gave you 2. You could use scallions as stems for your flowers. So I would cut one of them long ways like this. Yeah, that's good. I was just thinking, chop off the tops a little bit. I forgot. They get a little funny. And I'm going to cut again. Children, you could use, to cut the scallions, you can use a clean pair of kitchen scissors, which will be fine. And then the other scallion, I'm going to cut it this way, because that is going to look like a little circle. So maybe I'm going to use those little circles for something. And the white, and then it's going to change color towards the green. And I'm going to just keep slicing it like that. And then when you get to the top, this is what the little circles look like. So it's a little different. Just be thinking about what perhaps how can I use these to make a picture? So take your time and cut up all your vegetables. I'm going to show you how I cut my tomatoes. Actually, the grape tomatoes, I'm going to cut some of them lengthwise also. And those would make kind of nice flowers. Or if I cut it the other way, they would kind of look like berries. Right, if I cut them round like this. So you cut them in both directions. And I gave you all different color ones. Isn't that fun? Even little baby green tomatoes. Alright, so that's our tomatoes. The olives, again, you could slice them in either direction. So you could slice them this way to make little circles. Like that. Or you could cut them long ways. Like that. I've even seen some people cut them long ways and then make little tiny strips out of them. I know at Halloween you do that and you make little legs for insects like spiders and stuff. I'm just leaving all of my vegetables on my cutting board because we are not going to need the cutting board again. And then once again, I'm going to make these like this. We're going to cut the peppers. And we could do them both ways. I am going to try to cut out, actually I'm going to just cut off the top part, right, like this. And that's where most of the seeds are. Scrape them out. And I'm going to try to get this little centerpiece out. This green. I know when I use regular sized bell peppers, that's what I do. I cut off the top. And you could see it in some of the pictures. They were full-size peppers. And then leave this so that it's round like that. And that could be the center of a flower, maybe with an olive in the middle or an orange, a tomato. Okay, now I'm gonna slice down and I'm gonna make julienne strips of my pepper. So julienne strips are just straight lines, right? Again, keep your eye on the blade, eyes on your finger, curve your hands very gently. Let your knife do the work. And it's okay if you go slow. Right? If you're not experienced, you go slow. All right. I think the yellow one, I use my knife. Take this out. Get all the seeds out of there. Sometimes I go like that to get the seeds out. Push the seeds to the side. And let's see if there's a, oh, this one has them in the middle too. And take them out. Nice. Tap it a little. Get them out. Nice. Okay. Get those, trying to get the seeds off of here. And this one I'm gonna cut to make circles. So make nice circles. And I'll leave like the pointy part. Fantastic. And again, these are sweet peppers. They are not hot peppers. And I have one more. I think I'm going to slice these julienne after I get the seeds out. Excellent. How's everyone doing? If you have any questions, you could email me, or your sheets have my email address, julie@chefsofthefuture.com. Please follow me on YouTube if you like what you see. Also, you could go to Instagram. I think that is @chefsofthefuture. Also, I'm on Facebook personally, Julie Marcotullio Reilly. I'm also on my businesses on Facebook. So do all those great things. Subscribe, like, all that stuff. I gave you the QR codes so you could just scan them to get right to my pages. Obviously, you're already on my YouTube channel. All right, so there you have it. I have all of my vegetables cut up. Oh, we got to cut up the herbs too. So this is what my veggies look like. So wonderful. I gave you so many. You're probably not going to use them all. So the rosemary kind of looks like, you know, like Christmas trees. You could use them whole like that. If you want to chop some up, which I'm going to do, you hold the top and you pull down to peel that. And I'm going to leave that one little piece also. So I'm going to have two little pieces that look like trees. Love that smell. And I'm going to chop up the rest of this. Actually, yeah, I'm going to wait till I have my thyme. So the thyme is neat also. It's also very woody. You could use it as stems like that. Or again, you could just pull off the herb from the stem. And that just smells beautiful. I'm going to put that little piece on there, and the rest of it I'm going to just pull right off of the stem. Now, if you get them off the stem, the thyme, you really don't have to chop it up too much because the little leaves, just try to get out the hard stems, the woody stems. The stems that are more mature or more like wood. You don't want to put those in your mouth. So delish. Okay. So those are to the side. And then, let's see. There's some Italian parsley. And this could be like leaves on the branches. So I would just take apart some of them. And then I would chop up the rest of them. So I'm going to break off the stem. I'm going to put it with the rosemary to chop it up. And then we have the basil. I love these little leaves. They're good. Take the small leaves to put whole. The center, the top piece, you just pinch this out. And take off the big leaves. Save the little leaves. Because the basil, the rest of the basil, we really do want to chop it up. You don't want to use the basil, these big leaves. They'll just get like dried out on the focaccia. So I have this little pile of herbs and I am going to chop them. I'm running out of room on my cutting board. Let me push these to the side a little bit. See how I'm holding the knife loosely in my hand. I'm not going like this. That's not the right way to hold a knife. You practice, practice. So with the herbs, I could just have my other hand to the side. When the kids are chopping, I always say put one hand behind your back. Nice. Now the other thing is that if you have any other vegetables in the house, zucchini or anything like that, think about that and you could pull it out and you could add that to your focaccia too. And then last but not least, we have our mushrooms, which are already sliced. I bought them sliced. Okay. And as I said, we're going to get them in some olive oil. As a matter of fact, you could take the olive oil, you could put your mushrooms in the olive oil. We are going to use some of the olive oil, but that's all right if the mushrooms are soaking in them. Again, if you don't soak them, then they will, they'll dry out on your focaccia. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so there we are. Our vegetables are all cut up and ready to go. This prep work in French culinary terms is called mise en place. Mise en place means everything in its place. You do the prep work and then, you have everything all ready to go, chopped up, and then you go ahead with your recipe. So this is prep work. It's called mise en place. And it's very important. If you do all this ahead of time, and then you could have fun with when you get to the part of putting it all together and cooking it. So here I gave you a pan. If you have your own pan, you can use that. I'm just going to pour a little bit of that olive oil in. You can use a paper towel, you can use a pastry brush, or you could just use your hand to spread it. Just one hand, not both hands. So I'm going to spread this in here. And now our dough has had a little bit of time to rest, and it should have grown. Now, very important part to listen right now. I'm going to pick up the dough. I'm not going to knead it again, because when you start to knead it, it's going to get tough. This dough has a lot of air in it. It's very, very soft. So I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to put it into the pan, and I'm going to press it out. So watch me first. I'm picking up my dough, and I could just tell it's lighter. Actually, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to push the dough out. I'm not going to knead it. I'm going to just spread it. I don't use a rolling pin. The guys in the pizzeria, they don't use rolling pins to make pizza. And you make sure it gets to the corners. Now, this was a lot of dough for this. And it's perfect. All right. So, you see I'm pushing it to the ends. Beautiful. And that's what it looks like. Just pushed it right out. Fantastic. Now I am going to take a little bit of that oil, and I am going to put a little on top, just a tiny bit. And I'm again going to spread it. Nice. This time I am going to wipe my hand. Before, when we did it, the oil got absorbed into the dough. Now, very, very, very important. You have three things. You have the basil with the garlic, you have the onion, and you have your Romano cheese. So, you're going to take about half of each. It's not an exact measure. So first I'm going to do the basil with the garlic granules, and I'm going to sprinkle it on all over. This is very, very important because otherwise your focaccia is not going to have any flavor. Now you see how I'm holding my hand high up like this. I'm not going like this. If I go low, whoopsie, I'll try to show you close up. If I go low and drop it, all of it's going to end up in one spot, and we don't want that. So that was about half of it. And then I'm going to take these onions. These really do give it such good flavor. All around, make sure you get in the corners so that every bite has some. That was one thing that my grandmother really taught me. Whenever you're seasoning, whenever you're doing anything, make sure it goes all around so every bite has the goodness. And again, half of the cheese. And I'm going to use my fingers and sprinkle it on. That cheese smells good, right? Actually, I'll probably use 3/4 of the cheese on the bottom. Or if you can't have cheese, you could just leave out the cheese. Focaccia is good to take like leftovers and add it to it. It's a white pizza. All right, so now it's time to create. I'll try to do it upside down for you. I like to use the broccoli on the bottom and make little trees and bushes down at the bottom. And use the pictures that I gave you as a guide. Actually, what I'm going to do is, I don't need my knives anymore. So I'm going to bring my vegetables in. I do want you to see what I'm doing. All right. So, like that. A little in between. I'm really gonna pack mine because I want every bite to have something. And so, like, if you don't like all of the vegetables, that's right, maybe somebody else in the house does. So, you know, make like little sections of what you'd like. So now I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna use the tip of my yellow pepper to make a sun up in the corner. Oh, I didn't cut. Maybe I do need my knife. I'll take that. All right, so maybe make little strips and make the sun rays coming out. Did you see that one where that one was a panther? Some kid made a panther. So you can make geometric figures, you could, anything you want, whatever in your head that you're thinking about. It's artwork with food, right? All right. Then I'm going to show you with the red, I'm going to make flowers. I'm just gonna down like that. And maybe the center of the flower is going to be this orange piece. And then in the center of the orange piece, I'm going to put maybe an olive, maybe a little sprig of, no, that doesn't need a sprig of that. And in between, I'll just add some scallions. Let's make a stem for our flower. Put it right like that. All right. Okay, I have a little visitor here. Okay, so this was the stem for the flower, and then I could use some of the parsley to make leaves on the flowers. Like that. I'm gonna make another stem over here, coming up. And this time I'm gonna use the onion. Remember I showed you the onion before? So I'm going to take the onion, kind of separate the leaves, break it apart a little bit, fan it out. And this one I'm going to make the leaves of the stem with the basil, right? Because all the leaves are different. Put little pieces of basil. And then I'm going to do another stem in this corner, and I'm going to put my tomatoes around it. Like it's like a little, like a hollyhock or a... Alright, so there. This. Coming out. Fantastic. What else can we do? Oh, the mushrooms. Some people some kids thought the mushrooms looked like birds in the sky. So maybe I'll do that. Cut a little V out of it. Whatever you like. I like to use them as like rocks or boulders right down here where the bushes are, a little rock garden. All right, let's see, continue with those boulders. And try to fill in as a lot of so that you have something going on everywhere. Oh, and then these peppers that we cut like this. Silly me, I should have. All right, well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do another one of the flowers like this. And this time I'm gonna put this in the center. So these are just little circles of peppers. And then I'm gonna take some of my thyme and my little rosemary. This will have a stem of rosemary. And then I am gonna sprinkle some of these herbs down on the bottom to fill it in. So nice. Top too. And then I'll go back and I'll sprinkle on some more of the dry herbs Get the vegetables seasoned. I always put it in my hand to do it. And then I hold my hand up to sprinkle it on. All right. Same thing with the onion. And then finally, I'm going to top it with some more cheese. And then the olive oil, I'm going to drizzle it on. I want to make sure I get some on the broccoli. If you didn't steam the broccoli, like I didn't steam the broccoli. And the mushrooms need a little bit more also. You don't want them to dry out. And then the rest, just drizzle the rest on. And that's it. So I gave you a lot of vegetables there, so you could just munch on them. I'm going to put this into the oven. And it's not going to have to cook for too long. Let's see the picture that I made. All right, I'm going to put more red onions on. Alrighty. I really covered everything. So let's get that in the oven. I'm going to set the timer for about 15 minutes. I set it for 18 minutes. So please send me your pictures. Send some of your pictures to Miss Diane at the Franklin Square Library. For those of you that are here from the Franklin Square Library, I want to thank you again for coming and joining me. I hope to meet you in person someday. And I will be back when it's ready to show you what mine looks like. So that's all for now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean up while I'm done. Now these vegetables would make, there's a lot left. These vegetables would make a nice, they'll go nice on a salad. You could turn them into a little quick little vegetable soup with a little vegetable stock. Yes, yes. Saute up your onions and finish cutting up your herbs. And you could just do a little something with it. Put it on a salad. All right, that's for now. All righty, here we go. It's been actually 20 minutes. And I like to cook mine so it gets a little bit brown. It was a very thick dough. The most important thing about this is to make sure that the bottom is cooked. You want to make sure that the dough is cooked all the way through. So I'm going to take this out. Put it on the cutting board. Let's face it to you. And I'm going to check the bottom. Beautiful. You could see the bottom is like a little golden color. You don't want it too soft because then it won't be cooked. Hey, this is a great little appetizer for Thanksgiving, you know, show off. Why don't you? I'm going to cut it into pieces. That was my timer going off. Oh, I should have taken a picture before I cut it. All right. Well, there it is. So from my kitchen to yours with love and creativity. Thanks for joining me. Take care. So I just took all the leftover vegetables. I sauteed the onions and added some chicken, some vegetable bouillon, some water, and made a very quick chicken soup. Didn't even have to use the chicken if you just wanted to keep it vegetable.